Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Writers Chat, the place where we all gather as writers to talk about writing and all things writing for writers by writers. I still don't have that spiel down yet, but I think it changes every time. So, we all get the gist of it anyway. But we're so glad that you're here today, whether live or watching the replay. And today we have a special show by our very own Brandy Brow. Um, Before we get to that, I'm also going to introduce our co-host. We've got Norma Poor, me, of course, and then as our guest co-host standing in for Johnny today is Sophia Hansen. So glad to have everybody with us today. So with that, I'm going to just jump right in. Brandy is going to be talking with us today about a novel approach to setting goals, or scratch that, reaching achievements for the goal-averse. So this could be fun, especially for those of you who may struggle with the idea of setting goals and trying to attain those. And I think this is going to be a fun out of the box lesson. So I heard from Brandy that she's got a lot to unpack today, so I'm going to just turn it right over to her.
I do. Thanks, Melissa. And thank you, Sophia and Norma, for joining me today and helping me with the chat. And, and hopefully my internet will stay good because sometimes it does not like to stay. So how many times have you heard that people with goals are 10 times more likely to succeed? Or if you aim at nothing, you're sure to hit it. How about the scripture where there is no vision that people cast off restraint? Perhaps forgetting the rest of it that says, but he that keeps the law, happy he is. Those are the kinds of quotes that kind of niggle in my ear and jab me in the side and cause me severe pain when it comes to goals. We all think, okay, I have goals. I know I should set them. I know there are things that I need to achieve, but all the statistics and all the data says that we don't do well if we don't set goals. Well, some of the statistics that I've looked at, which admittedly are all over the place. In fact, I even looked to try and find some of the sources, and I had a hard time coming up with the actual reports and sources. One of them actually had a report by Harvard Law, I think it was Harvard Business Law, where there was some kind of report on setting goals and writing them down. And it turns out that report, that study actually never even happened. There was a follow-up article that says this wasn't true, but there are so many other articles that tag that report as their foundation. So what's the case? Hard to say. But let me give you a couple of statistics I did find. They kind of do have a little bit of an estimate. So according to HQ Hire, 13% of people set goals. 84% of people don't set goals at all, but only 3% of the people that set goals actually achieve them. Not great statistics on that one. According to Inc., 8% of people who set goals achieve them, and 92% who set goals don't achieve them. Kind of along the same lines. That doesn't even account for people that don't set goals. Gallup says that past major successes in life, 59% of the people that have them did it with goals, but a little bit better, 40% of people that had past major successes did it without goals. So kind of leads you to believe that maybe there's another way to get things done without setting goals. Either way, it seems like all the statistics are stacked against goal setting, even though it's drilled over and over and over that if you want to reach something, you need to set goals. And the highest achievers always set goals. I don't know about you, but I just really struggle with it. And I've heard from several other people that really struggle with it. Let's see what's said. Goals keep you motivated, but goals keep me crippled. They say goals make you accountable. Goals make me actually default on what I want to do. Goals help you stay on track, they say. Actually, for me, goals make me fall farther behind. They say goals give you a way to measure your progress. For me, goals give me a track record of my failures. That doesn't help me to do anything better. And they also say goals provide a sense of accomplishment. Well, they provide me a sense of discouragement and worthlessness. And I know I'm not the only one that these statements um, don't set right with. And because I've heard other people saying the same thing, goals cripple me. Goals make me feel discouraged. They just make me feel like a big failure. And so the idea of setting goals, New Year's resolutions, anybody, just makes people want to shrink and run away. I think that's because we have a whole lot of aversions to goals based on our past experiences. It is goals are often too high of a bar that are set by others that seem to have so much together that we feel like we can't measure up. Perhaps we feel condemned by the statistics or the other goal setters or society in general and feel like a failure at life because we've tried and just can't make it. The goal setting process, too detailed. I can't possibly keep track of it. I've looked at some of that. I've even actually come up with a full, detailed way to set goals. And oh my goodness, I just couldn't do it. I mean, it was a great plan, but I think sometimes setting goals is just a distraction to actually working through the process. Other aversions are that it creates expectations we're afraid to meet. It puts too restrictions on my time. That's how I feel. And I might want to put my efforts and energy somewhere else, or I might need to put them somewhere else. Like if something comes up with my family, this is especially true for people who are parents or caregivers, people that have less control of their time because they're involved with others. And when you're involved with others, you can't control what happens with other people. You have variables outside what you can actually do anything with. How about you hate simply being controlled by time? I dealt with that for a while. I just really bucked against time. Well, gee, that's kind of a hard one because time is fixed. Everybody's got it. And with that one, you just have to try to make friends with time. How about I hate anything telling me what I have to do or that I have to do something? I bucket that. You can kind of tell I have a little bit of a rebellious streak. If somebody tells me I need to do something, I dig in and I don't want to do it. Also, a lot of the time, I think I'm lazy. However, I've really kind of looked a little bit more into this, and yeah, I am a little bit innately lazy. Boy, that was hard to say. But the reality is that I have so many demands on me, external demands, and I don't have enough recoup time so that when I do get a little bit, I just don't have any more in me to put out towards goals. And so it comes across to me as feeling lazy. And when the fact is, I'm actually overextended and I need the rest and recoup time and I'm not getting it. Goals, they take a lot of effort to do something different than what I'm used to. Not all of us like things that are new. We kind of like new things, but when they're forced upon us and we have to do them regularly, we have to commit to them, then it gets uncomfortable because we can't just settle back into our comfortable place. I writhe under limitations, naturally, and I like to keep my options free. Why? I'm afraid I might miss something better that comes along. That one kind of gets me a lot. And I'm afraid that if I limit myself to goals and something I want to do, I'm going to miss something better. That one is a tackle in its own. But it's a truth that I face when dealing with goals. I might not be able to change my mind if that something better comes along. Well, especially because God says that when you commit to something, you should follow through on it and don't waffle. And if you've already committed to something and you need to do something else, and scripture actually says at one point, go and see if you can be released from that so that you go and do this other thing. But if you can't be released from that, you need to keep your commitments. Also, I like spontaneity. Goals tend to crimp my style when it comes to that. I admit that. Let's see, what else do I have here? The goals I'm supposed to set, according to society, aren't really more important to me than the other things that I have to do to eliminate. Okay, let me say it again. I have to eliminate things that are more important to me than in order to do the goals that other people say I should do. So what happens when something is more important than the goals we're supposed to set? We don't do the goals. We do what we feel is more important because we're setting goals maybe wrongly. Perhaps because we're doing them based on what other people say we should do rather than what we actually really need to do what fits us in particular. I'm not that organized. So trying to set goals and keep them makes me feel like I have a cluster of eels I'm forced to hold underwater as I hold my breath, and they'll slip from my hands and fly off in all directions, and I won't be able to get them back. And in the process, I might actually drown. That is how I feel about setting goals. Not a great feeling. I also have to admit, I'm impatient, like most of the rest of the world. I'm anxious. I want to get things done now. And usually, when you want to read something, there's a process. We have to be patient. And I'm learning to be more patient, but I have to admit that I don't always want to take all the steps that I need to take to get something done. That's a different struggle, but it's one of my realities in setting goals. And I like the reward of a goal, but sometimes I don't like the process that it takes to get there because it's hard work. And sometimes I don't like hard work. I have to admit that. What about this one? You don't believe you can actually do it. Sometimes that comes into play with setting goals. You set goals and you're not sure you can actually do it. I feel like I have to set goals that respect me. They're not what I really want to do. I guess that's a little bit of what I already said. I missed that one in my notes. Didn't delete it. I'm disappointed of my past failures, and trying again is too painful. A lot of people have a lot of troubles with that one. How about I fear that failure of disappointment of failing, and I fear the pain of it and be humiliated by more failure if I try again, and that I'm simply not good enough to achieve this goal. But what about maybe you identify with I fear achieving the goal, because achieving means that you're going to now be outside your comfort level and what you already know. What about if once you achieve it, then you'll be committed and you'll have to follow through? What if you don't like it anymore and you want to step down, you want to do something else? Things will be hard. You might fear that things will be hard because when you learn something new, you're on new ground. It's unfamiliar. However, when you stay in something that's familiar too long, it breeds complacency, and that's not great either. It's good for us to be challenged. What about the have-tos of goal setting suck the joy out of the tasks and it makes you feel like you're a child being reprimanded by a controlling parent? Resonate with anybody, maybe? Failed goals also tend to make me anxious and depressed, and ultimately, setting goals tends to kill my creativity, which is extremely important in writing, would you say? So that's a whole slew of reasons. And there's probably more, but I think that's enough. We'll get the point that there are a lot of reasons people struggle with setting goals and keeping to the progress of trying to achieve them. What are our needs really? Is it actually to set goals? I think we all have an innate need to accomplish things, to meet achievements, not necessarily to reach a goal, but to feel like we've done something, we've overcome something, we've put in good effort and have gotten a good reward for our effort. We all have a desire to feel good inside on one level or another. For some, they get that from doing things. From others, they get that from connecting with people. And then many of us have a deep desire or a deep need for change, even if you're afraid of the change. Perhaps the change is that you simply can't continue to exist with the little money that you have because you need more to be able to pay your bills. A lot of people have that need. So let's look at goals versus achievements. What are they? Goals are something that one hopes or intends to accomplish, right? An end point. An achievement is the actual doing of the action. One way that people have attempted to bridge the gap between goals and achievements is to create SMART goals. You've heard of them. They're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. However, as we've looked at statistics already and all of the ways that we feel about setting goals, SMART goals, even though they sound great, still tend to often fail. And they leave us stressed. Have you tried them? many have and just don't feel great about it. Why is that? Well, I think people struggle with setting goals because some people may place more value on how they feel than on how much they do. I really think there are two camps of people. Some are just doers. They're more into doing stuff and they feel good about doing stuff. And then other people are more into connecting with people. They feel good about connecting with people. Just the values are different. It doesn't make one group of people better than the other. It just means that we function differently from each other. And I think setting goals really caters to that group of people that need to accomplish things. But it doesn't cater to the people that need to connect with people. So it's not bad that we place value on how we feel. Some of us are just more empathetic. God has wired some of us with a deep need for peace and well-being in our souls, and we don't work well with turbulent waters inside. That's just the way it is. There's nothing wrong with it. It's how God made us. If you're like this, then daily to-do lists probably already drop your feel-good meter, but you work with them because you know that they help you get things done. And if you're honest with yourself, you probably realize that even though you hate doing the things on your to-do list, they do make you feel a little bit better to have them done because your responsibilities you're on top of. Also, loading on goal-related tasks to your to-do list can really suck the life out of you and cause your motivation to stall if you're one of those types of people where you just have this emotional need to feel good, better about stuff and connecting with people. The thing is, we are human beings, not human doings. I'm sure you've heard that, right? Consider Luke chapter 10, verses 38 to 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Goal setters and achievers are often rush, and they don't have as much time for people and relationships. They tend to be more Martha type of people. Doesn't mean they're bad. I don't think that Martha in this set of scriptures is a bad type of person. It's just in that situation, she was frustrated and she couldn't release herself to sit at Jesus' feet for a little while. Goal setters and achievers will move things out of their control. In other words, they will take the things that they can't control, they'll move them to the side so that they can take a straighter path from point A to B by the things they can control. So if there's anything that they can't control, they prefer not to deal with it. Sometimes they can appear harried, having little time for interruptions. And you'll find that a lot of this type of people will schedule people into their lives, into the day-to-day doings to make room for relationships. But they do that for the people that matter to them. The other people, they just won't have time for. That's okay. That's how they function. I don't find any fault with that. And if you're like that, do your thing. Then there are people who struggle with setting goals because they place more value on emotional connections and relationships than they do on ticking off boxes. They leave room in their day for connections with other people and allow others to take up their time with the needs they might have. You'll find a lot of people that like to minister to others are kind of like this. They purposely set aside time to be available to others to help them because it helps them to feel better, and it's just something that God has made for them to do. The people that we connect with in our day, they control their own stuff. So the more people that we connect with, the more unexpected events that we will have in our day that we can't control. So this leaves less time to accomplish tasks for ourselves to get from point A to point B, especially if we are in a habit of acting predominantly in response to others rather than setting the course for our days. I know that as a mom, as a caregiver, I tend to function naturally from reacting to situations and meeting needs than I do from setting my day and choosing what to do. I'm trying to change a little bit of that so that I can become a little bit more balanced and still meet people's needs, but also set the course that I need to do for the things that God has put in my hands to do. For these type of people that place more value on their emotional connections, relationships. It takes a lot longer for them to get from point A to point B because there's so many variables that are out of their control. Setting goals is largely a personal endeavor. They work for many people, but not for a lot. And I venture to say that both camps are probably equal to each other, if not maybe a little bit heavier in the goals don't work camp. I think that precipitates the need for another way to achieve things and to feel better about everything. So I'd like you to just ask yourself some questions. And we're just going to put these out there and have you think about them. Do you place more value on accomplishing things or on experiencing life? Are you action focused or emotion focused? Are you task oriented or people oriented? Are you spontaneous? Do you thrill at the idea of setting goals or does it cause anxiety? Have you successfully accomplished many of your set goals in the past? And do you enjoy following through on your goals? Some people will accomplish them, but maybe not enjoy what they're doing. And that's important to consider. So in thinking about those things, it will help you kind of get an idea of which way might be a better way for you to go when it comes to accomplishing things. Is goal setting a little bit better? Or is a different way a little bit better? If a different way might be a little bit better, let me give you some permission for that. So organizing something to death doesn't put you any closer to following through on the steps that you've organized so well. I am really good at organizing stuff. Following through, not so easy. And a lot of the time, that's where I fail. Should we say to one another, we should all make goals? Or should we fault each other for not making them? Or should we call people lazy when they've made them and haven't followed through? I think that's harmful. God made us different from each other. All we gotta do is look at Myers-Briggs types and, you know, the type A people and then the people that are just so empathetic, they're complete opposites. This world is full of various types of people. Why would we all make each other try to accomplish things in the same way? It doesn't make sense to me. Should we say to God that he should not have made it difficult for us to set and keep goals? No, that's like saying, God, you should have made me this way. But if God made us this way, then he also made a way for us to go through life able to achieve what he desires for us to achieve and what he's put in us to want to achieve. So, is it okay if goal setting doesn't work for you? Yes, it's okay. So don't keep forcing yourself to accomplish things the way that other people say that you should, or the way that other people are able to. Do what works for you. Give yourself permission to let goal setting go. There is another way. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. So what do we want? Do we want goals or do you want achievements? I don't know about you. I prefer to focus on achievements, not necessarily goals. Must we use goals to get achievements? No. We don't even want to think about overcoming goal setting. Sometimes we think about, oh, I just have to get over this goal setting. I have to overcome it. Like we have to conquer it, which means we're wrestling with something that just doesn't work for us. Why? It's better for us to trade goal setting for something that works with how we are wired. So here's how. First thing to do, stop striving. Psalm 46:10 says, stop striving and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted on the earth. We strive so much to do things. And whenever we're striving, it's always motivated by something that is a should. We're striving because I should do this. That's not what God wants for us to do. I think that he gives us things so that we can delight in them and we can take joy as we do them. Yes, there are some things that we're going to have to do that we don't want to do. I have that all the time, every day as I take care of a lot of people. I don't like doing dishes and cleaning the house and doing laundry, but it's something I need to do. However, I'm able to do those things and find a way to take joy in them, whether it's by talking to God as I do them or something else, listening to music. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't do things we don't want to do. But when it comes to the things that God has put in our heart to do, then there is a level of joy that we should have in that, because he doesn't give us things just to restrict us. He gives us things that match who he made us to be. So let's identify our true motivation. A lot of times we're motivated to do goals because we feel like we should, or we have to. I want to accomplish something, and people say this is the way to do it. So I want you to ask yourself, what made you fall in love with writing? Well, we were talking about writing, but this could be applicable to anything else that you want to achieve. So do more to bolster this love. What made you fall in love with writing? I don't know. For me, I just like playing around with words. I like getting things right. I like the idea of coming up with new worlds and new creatures and things like that. So think about that. What made you really fall in love with it? Not that this is God has told you to do this. If God told you to write, or God told you to do something, there should also be something within you that resonates affirmation of that calling by a desire as well. Now ask, what saps all the joy out of your writing? Maybe it's setting goals to do your writing. For me, that's it. It's also, once I started to attach the word work to writing, then, I have this mental block about work, kind of the same that I do about practice. And some of that comes from my childhood and some experiences that I had attached to the words practice and attached to the word work. Anything that my brain thinks is work, I automatically go, ugh, I don't want to feel that way about writing, because I actually love writing. And when I actually get into doing it, I'm like, I love this. But when I'm not actively doing it yet and I'm thinking about it, then it's work. And I get this dread that I don't want to do it. There's this huge disconnect. So if the idea of working at writing kills your motivation, discard the idea that it's work and let it resume being the joy that it once was, even if that means that you start calling it play. Other people might have given you a reason to knee-jerk at that word play when it comes to writing. I had a family member that every time I was sitting on the computer to write would look at me and say, are you playing at your computer again? And it was said in such a demeaning way that the term play made me think that I have to counter that with, no, I am working, right? But that ended up killing my joy to write. It wasn't okay for me to admit I was playing at the computer because it was used in a demeaning tone in my household. So I have to come to terms with that. You know what? I need to actually be playing when I sit down to write. Does that mean that it is valueless, that it is something I shouldn't be doing and spending my time on? Absolutely not. What it means is that somebody else did not understand the value of my time spent with writing. So consider those things. If you have some of those negative voices, think about whether they're founded in truth and what the truth really is to counterbalance that. It is good to play at writing, very good to play at writing, and I encourage more of us to play at writing. Your motivation will come from whatever you need to do to feed your love for that thing and to starve whatever is the killjoy for that thing. So whatever motivates you to feed your love for writing, do that. And whatever kills your motivation for writing, stop doing that. Change your thinking. So the next step after stop striving and after identifying your motivation is to choose a direction. This is different from setting goals. We're looking at a direction, not just a single point in time or a single thing you're wanting to reach, but a path. We're looking at a path. For us, the path is writing, but there might be a more specific path. For me, my specific path is fiction, short fiction in particular. If I get more detailed than I want to write short fiction, I start to feel myself cringe and shrivel up inside. So if you start to feel yourself shriveling up, if you're getting too narrow and too specific, give yourself permission to back up a little bit and widen your direction to just aim that way and know that you're going the right way. One of the ways you can figure out what your direction is by asking, what is a desire God has placed in you? Where do you feel led to go by God? And then choose your direction based on those things, not based on what others say you should do or what your pocketbook says you should do. Too many of us are choosing our paths based on our need for a bigger wallet. And I dare say, let God fill the wallet and just choose the right path outside the wallet. After choose a direction, set a trajectory. So this is a little bit different as well from setting a bunch of SMART goals where they're specific and actionable and all of those things. Those things kind of indicate that you're going to go from point A to point B in a straight line. Life doesn't work that way. It hardly ever works that way. The people that can go from point A to point B in a straight line are people that don't have very many distractions, don't interact with a lot of other people who have their own wills that interrupt us. Most of the time, we have to take a trajectory. Now, what is a trajectory? Oh boy, my mouth. The thing that I think of is the space shuttle wanting to reach the moon. It takes a trajectory. It is a curved path. It's not a straight path, it's a curved path. So it allows for obstacles. Let's see. Okay. Looking at my notes. Well, I wrote down what the trajectory is. I'm not sure where I put it in my notes. So that's okay. So do something along your trajectory. Wait, back up. Here we go. There it is. I scrolled down too far. So the path from here to where we want to go will never be straight. Like setting goals assumes that it will be. Trajectory. Here, I found it. It was right where I had it. It's the curve that a body, like a planet or a body in orbit, describes in space, or it's a path, a progression, or a line of development like to a physical trajectory. So if you think of that arc of the space shuttle, that's what we're going for. Setting a trajectory allows us fits and starts. It allows us to fall down and get back up. It allows for sudden detours. And it gives us the flexibility we'll need when life inevitably disrupts us, because it is going to. If we're set on a trajectory, it allows us to change when we need to. A trajectory keeps our path alive instead of killing it with defeat. If we're setting SMART goals and we miss a SMART goal or we miss a time for a SMART goal, it tends to kill it and we feel like a failure. But if we set a trajectory and things don't quite go the way we want it to, or we get a little off, then we course correct. We just course correct going towards that direction that we are headed on. So when you set your trajectory, be realistic about your limitations. Do you have kids? How is your health? Do you have an outside job? Do you have a special needs parent, a child, or a parent that you're taking care of? These things are going to limit how much time you're going to be able to spend on your direction. That's okay. It just means that your trajectory is probably going to have a bigger arc. It's going to take a little bit longer to get down the line. That's all right. It's giving yourself grace and allowing for you to still travel the path at a pace that you're able to go, given all of the other variables in your life. You might decide that it is, oh yeah, you want to think about when setting what is in and out of your control. If you have a lot of things that you're handling in your life that are out of your control, that's going to make your trajectory need to be a bigger arc and take a little bit longer to get there. So consider if you want to do daily or weekly activities along your path that match your trajectory. Weekly activities might be better to alleviate any pressure to perform if you have many things on your plate. That's okay, because you're still keeping on that path a little at a time. It provides momentum, which is extremely important. If we don't do activities on the path for a very long period, then all of our momentum comes to stop. And then trying to get it started again is kind of like getting a train going again. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of horsepower to get a stopped train to move. But once the train is moving, it only takes a little bit to keep it moving. So doing those activities on a regular basis, even if it's weekly instead of daily, is going to keep that momentum going and help it to be easier to see progress. Daily or weekly activities, it allows for a much needed rest to recharge because it's an easier path, that trajectory. It's just easier to be able to get the rest and recharge you need. It allows for unexpected events and circumstances that will inevitably arise. So it's basically, like I said before, giving yourself grace. So do something along your trajectory. I wrote a note on my piece of paper that I didn't place. Aha, here it is. Employ what is already in your hands to do. So your talents, like your natural bent, writing, singing, drawing, any of those. For us, we're working at writing. Your skills. Are you already skilled in fiction? Are you skilled at writing devotionals? Employ that. Any tools you might have. Perhaps you are doing some marketing stuff. Maybe you have specific software that you have or a pen tablet that you can use. If not, don't worry about it. We're looking to use what you already have. Resource, you have any publication connections or editorial connections, or have you trained in something specific for writing? So use what's already in your hands. And then if you lack something to do what you would like to do, consider what you could do to fill that lack. But in your considering, think if it's something that you can really acquire. Think about how many resources like technology, money, and time it will take you. Consider how much you really need it, and then consider how much you will actually use it once you acquire it. And think about those things when you are considering adding to what you already have to do your work. Excuse me, to do your play. I really have this average thing to work. Let's see. An important thing, choose a date for yourself to evaluate your trajectory. So choose a shorter time. If you get restless sooner, it allows you to change your path if you need to. You want to choose a longer time if you know some things are going to take you a longer time to get there. Like if you want to publish a novel on your own, for example, and you are starting from scratch, it's going to take longer to do that. So set your reevaluation date a little bit longer to give yourself enough time to try and walk that out, given your trajectory. And then if the direction no longer works for you, give yourself permission to choose a new one. However, that comes along the next thing. I just didn't move my note. One thing I want to note is that if your trajectory is too curved or too straight at that time, you can adjust it to fit your needs. And you don't have to wait until that evaluation date to do that. If you're working along and you're finding it's not quite going, adjust your trajectory as you go. That's part of the beauty of all this. It's adjustable. We need things to be adjustable. And then important, choose a reckoning date to evaluate your direction. This is super, super important. This is the date where you evaluate your progress and that you make a change if it isn't working. So you want the full amount of time to give yourself to see if this path has been or still is good for you. So you want to give yourself, it's like the ultimatum date. If I've gone 5 years and I haven't done XYZ, then I need to change my direction. So this lets you drop a path if your life has changed or you need something different. It gives you the incentive also to walk your trajectory, because you don't want to get to that point and have accomplished nothing. What would have been the point? If that's the point and you've gotten to that date and you've done absolutely nothing or very little, then maybe it was the wrong path. And why continue going that way? Which means if you're going on that path and you haven't done much, maybe there's another path that you should be on that you just haven't recognized yet. So it's important to evaluate that. So if you reach that recommended date and you're making good progress, then you can tweak your direction or you can continue on. But if you reach it and you haven't made any progress at all or very little, then choose what you will do for a direction shift, because at this point, you should change something. This may mean changing your direction completely. So, for example, maybe instead of writing stories, you're going to make jewelry. Or it could mean changing your direction to something a little bit closer by, but not the same. So maybe instead of writing novels, you're going to shift to make podcasts. Or maybe instead of writing novels, you're going to start writing devotionals. But at this state, if something isn't showing any or enough progress, you should make some kind of direction change. So the last point in this is write down your direction. Write down the reason you're going that way. Write down what kind of trajectory, a large or smaller arc. Also record the reevaluation date for your trajectory and then your reckoning date for your path. And take these written down things and post it somewhere that you will read it often. So I would like to close at least this teaching part with, what is the true measure of success? It's not reaching goals. I think a lot of it is the progression, how we got there, what we learned along the way. You know, they always say it's never about the destination, it's about the journey. But think about this each day. The true measure of success at the end of the day is if you have done God's will, God's way, in God's timing. Nothing else is needed. And that is true whether or not you've done something along your directional path or you haven't this particular day. If you've done God's will, God's way, and God's timing, be at peace because He's at peace with you. So that is my material for now. I would like to invite everybody to come back on, and if you have any questions or anything you would like to say, please share.
I do know we have quite a few. Oh, sorry, Narma.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Have quite a few people in the chat who are asking if they might be able to get copies of your notes, that they really enjoyed this and would like to have those for reference.
Yes, I can do that. It will just take me a little bit of time because they're not in shareable format. Absolutely.
Brandy, do you see a difference between planning and goal setting?
Absolutely. Planning and goal setting. Well, you know what? Goal setting is like the end point, and planning is like how you'll get there, and they're related in that sense. But I think that they, I mean, they're different in that sense, but they're related in that neither actually set your feet on the path to walking it out. I mean, you can plan something to death and do absolutely nothing. I've done that a bazillion times. I've come up with the greatest laid plans, and then I'm like,
right.
And the same could be said for the goals too. You can write goals up the wazoo and still not accomplish any single one of them because you have no steps in mind to reach those goals. So
Yep. I would like to say that one thing that I did miss, because it was on my paper notes and I was reading off my computer notes, is when you are doing something along your trajectory, add in things along your path onto a to-do list, just your regular to-do list. And most of us have somewhat of a to-do list, whether it's in our head or we write it on paper. And a to-do list is more today immediate oriented, whereas a goal, and SMART goals are really long term and really give people anxiety because they're like, well, what if I do this? What if I don't want to be doing that at that point? But a to-do list is like, okay, this is the immediate thing, like, make a submission to X publication. And their deadline is in 2 weeks, right? You can put that on a to-do list, just a normal to-do list along with pay the bills and fold the laundry. And that kind of is a really great way to add in actionable steps for your path, your direction. But and I say actionable step, which is part of the SMART goals. I really have a thing against that. But it gives you something to do, but without all of that major stress of planning and restriction and just all of these things that tend to cramp us up so much.
Sophia, you have a question?
I have a thought. There's the opposite view too. Early on, especially when I was homeschooling all my bazillion kids, I took a look at the difference between Ebenezer's and milestones. And Ebenezer's, when you look back in thankfulness and see what God has done so far. And I find that is very energizing and very motivating because look what God did. And then you have a little bit more forward energy and hope. Milestones are what you're supposed to reach by a certain time, and they can be discouraging, and they lead to comparison. Well, such and such and such and such did this at this time, and I'm only here. And it negates the fact that you're being guided by your shepherd. And we got to follow the cloud. So I like to do that, and also surround myself with people that can be honest and encourage me, that I can cry at or just say, I don't have no idea what I'm doing. What should I do now? Should I wear a t-shirt or should I wear fancy clothes? Even the dumb questions, and it's just nice to have a gang around you that you can go through the journey with. So
yeah, I totally agree with that.
And Tanya wants to know if you are a homeschooler.
I used to be. Yep. Also reminds me of
always a homeschooler.
Yeah, well, used to be a way. It used to be. No, still am. Gosh, where is my brain? Wow. Okay. I was thinking of my other kids for some reason. It also reminds me of the scripture where it says, don't just basically set a plan for what you want to do. Just say, if God wills, we will do this or that.
And also Luke 4:6-7, be anxious for nothing.
Oh, absolutely.
But in everything, with prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. It covers all of that. It doesn't discount what you might want to do, but it still lays it before the Father, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, my favorite part, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus.
Yes. And to which of us has God said, you need to make SMART goals to reach heaven? Nobody.
Oh.
Nobody.
Yeah.
It's not in the Bible at all. So, there's a path. Why would we make a dumb goal? I love that. Thank you, Tanya. That was perfect. I just think about that. I'm like, all of these, should do's that come with SMART goals. God doesn't function that way. And at least it hasn't with me. I don't see that in scripture. And SMART goals just always makes me feel condemned. So I've always thought there has to be a better way. I just don't know what that is until, I really started looking at stuff and figure out, what am I doing well? What am I not doing well? Where are my hangups? Where are other people's hangups? I'd also like to invite any of you to give me feedback on anything that you've heard today, or in applying any of this. I'd really like to know how it goes for you. If you think of it down the road, please, connect with me on Facebook so that I can learn what you've experienced with this. I would really appreciate that. Always growing, always learning.
I like the perspective that it gives. I mean, in no way is this like, poo-pooing on goals. In fact, in one way, you could say it's kind of semantics, saying there are those who like them. They're hard and fast, smart goals because they have something a little more firm to grasp on. And then there are those who would like a trajectory, which is more of like a flexible goal setting way.
Yes.
So it gets
Yep.
your mind out of that box if your focus is too much on the hard and fast and it's freezing you up. And so that verse in Luke, I think, really kind of pulled my mind in that direction, thinking, because it does help facilitate the getting your mind where God wants you to be, in the right focus, rather than on the circumstances and all the things that I can or can't do or can or can't control. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate that out of the box perspective and getting you to sit back and really assess your situation and what can work for you. And as a former homeschooler, I know some of you are saying there's no such thing as former homeschooler, but yes, one who is no longer currently homeschooling children, but still homeschooled in the past. I was very phlegmatic and flexible with my goal setting and scheduling with kids. And I think that helped facilitate because we were more eclectic in the way that we approach teaching. And it facilitated a better learning environment all around. So I think that there's a lot to be said about that as far as goal setting and reaching your aspirations, what you're wanting to go, focusing on that trajectory better than the hard and the fast. So yeah.
Now I have to say, I did come up with a big, huge, long plan, a very detailed way to set goals. I did that last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember how long ago it was. And it's a great plan, and it works really well for people that need that detailed step-by-step instruction. I just turned out to be not one of those people that could follow it really well. And I have both sets. I find a lot of people look at that. Actually, I shared that with Writers Chat Fiction, and I think it was helpful to look at some things for people, but I think the majority of our members are just like, this is great, but this is too much. I can't actually follow this out and do it because there's just so many things to think about. And I truly appreciated that, because it turned out that was me too. Like I said, I can plan something to death, but then following it out, it needs to be more user-friendly for me to follow something out. Yes, we can plan our steps. We can plan, but God directs our steps. Yes, absolutely, Leslie. Yep. So thank you so much for sharing this time with me. We will have a little bit more chat in the after party. Melissa, do you want to discuss what's coming up next week?
Yeah, well, this is going to be interesting in that our guest for next week is going to be Larry Leach. He's going to return and share with us, but the topic is still a mystery. So you will have to wait until later on in the week to learn what he's going to share about. And we'll post that to the usual places on Facebook and Twitter X when the time comes. So you're just going to have to hold on to your seats. It's always good with Larry. He always has great insight to share and so many valuable points. So we're looking forward to it.
So glad for that. Thank you.
So I guess with that, thank you for joining us today on Writers Chat. Thank you, Brandy, for sharing this with us today. It has been great. I know everybody's just loving it, and look forward to looking at those notes later on. Thank you for those who are joining us in the replay. For those who don't know, you can find the replays on Serious Writers YouTube channel. And if you're not a member of Writers Chat, you can join our Writers Chat Facebook group and be a part of future shows live on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern to 12:15. And or continue catching other replays if you can't make it in live. We love having everybody here regardless. Thanks, and we'll see you later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.